Anyway, normally when I get up here, I like to open up my ID and do stupid things and try to amaze everybody. I'm not going to do that tonight. I just kind of wanted to talk to everybody a little bit about sort of current events in the Laravel ecosystem and sort of get a feel for. I'd like this to be a little bit of a back and forth if anybody's up for giving any feedback. The evolution of the starter kit or the application framework, the application boilerplate that Laravel provides. When I first started in Laravel, they offered what you see on my screen right now, Laravel/UI, and it basically would just let you publish Bootstrap. I don't know if anybody remembers Bootstrap from back in the day. Layouts and authentication, real simple. Everything just gets published into your app folder and your resources directory, and you just kind of build onto it. And so when I decided I wanted to give this talk, I took a look to see if they've kept this up to date, and I was pleasantly surprised to see that yes, in fact, as you can see, it does support Laravel 12. So if you wanted to still use Laravel/UI, which I think, if I'm not mistaken, was kind of the first party boilerplate for authentication and layout. And it was great. I mean, it served my needs for a long time. And then, a few years later, they came out with a couple of packages, Breeze and Jetstream. Again, they focused on a layout. They gave you a basic app layout, a guest layout, and some, basic authentication components, your register form and your login form. And Breeze was nice. It was actually, I think, until the most recent starter kits, I think Breeze was, at least in my circles, the most popular of the starter kits because it was so simple, and it made everything available because it published anything important straight into your application. So you would install it, and you own everything, and you can manage everything. I don't love that myself. I personally prefer to have as little boilerplate in my apps as possible. I like things to live in the vendor folder, and I love to be able to just publish what I need to override, because I feel like the less my app owns, the better. Just long-term maintenance, I run a ton of applications. I want to be able to just run composer update and have all my stuff updated and not have to think, oh, I just discovered this bug, and it's a bug that now lives in 86 applications that I run, and so I have to go through and I have to patch 86 applications. So the more stuff lives in vendor, the happier I am. And I know that's not everybody. A lot of people want to own all the code, which is great, but Breeze was never a good option for me. Also, it didn't have things like two-factor authentication and Teams, and those are things that I wanted to use basically in every app. So about the same time they brought out Breeze, it might have been right at the same time, they also brought out Jetstream. Jetstream was fantastic. It offered the two-factor authentication, it offered Teams. It did keep a lot of stuff in the vendor folder, which for a long time was fine with me. I didn't really have a big problem with it. About a year ago, Thunk, the agency in the United States run by Daniel Colburn, started developing this package called Verbs that makes event sourcing really easy. And I had tried event sourcing, I dabbled with it, here and there, and could never really wrap my head around it. And when I started using Verbs, I recognized this is the way you should develop Laravel apps. I feel very strongly about it. One of these days I'll give a talk about it and show how I use it and why I use it. But I went all in on it. And then I decided, well, I wonder, because I'm not firing any events for user registration or anything around authentication. So if I ever had to wipe out my database and replay my events, I can't wipe out my users table because they're all being created the old-fashioned way. I wonder what it would take to wrap Jetstream in Verbs. And I realized the big drawback of Verbs. Why is my computer just switching? The big drawback is that of Jetstream. Jetstream does publish some stuff to the vendor folder and the app directory, so you own that stuff. There's nothing you can do to get away from that. But it doesn't publish the right stuff. When I wanted to intercept things like user registrations and turn those into Verbs events, that was not trivial. there are a lot of things that it does using Fortify behind the scenes that are really hard to hook into and throw an event at. So the best you can really do is take your verbs event and fire it inside of whatever Laravel event bus event exists, and just kind of do the idempotent thing, like if the user doesn't create, then it doesn't exist, then I'm going to create it. If it's the first time running through, obviously they would have been created already by the back end. So it was a thing. I didn't love it at that point, and I probably rebuilt Jetstream 3 or 4 times trying to get that abstraction right. And I still do use one of my rebuilds in new apps that I spin up, but I still didn't get it right. And I can see why they did the things the way they did, because it's really hard in something that has this many moving parts to give people the ability to get to exactly what they want to get to and keep everything else tucked away. You're always going to miss, and I continue to miss. So yeah, Jetstream is still a really good, both Jetstream and Breeze are great, viable options. But then when Laravel 12 came out, the Laravel team decided to go a totally different way with their starter kits. And this is what they are now. So Laravel starter kits today are full Laravel applications. The whole skeleton is inside of a repo, and you're cloning that repo and starting from it. So what they've done is they've set up all of your authentication and your layouts and all of that stuff inside this repo. When you run Laravel new and you select a starter kit, you're just pulling down this whole repository. Which is fine. It makes a lot of sense. When it first came out, it was like, well, these aren't really for me because they do put everything in the app directory, they put everything in resources. I want to be able to keep that stuff in vendor and only publish what I want, so this isn't right for me. Maybe, hopefully someday, they'll be able to support third party. I could create my own starter kit. And a few weeks later, after some phone calls and nudges, there were a lot of conversations going on behind the scenes, and they did. There was somebody opened a PR that, I don't remember who opened the PR, but there was a PR open that allowed for the use of community starter kits, and within a couple of days of that PR being opened, it was merged, and now you can create your own starter kit. And so anybody in the community, like if you want to create your own starter kit and release to the community, you can do that. And they all look pretty much exactly the same. It's just, you basically start your Laravel application the way you'd want to start it, and you save that, you slap it up into packages, and then by just adding a use flag, or using flag down here, you can specify any starter kit you want. It's just the vendor name and the package, like anything else in Packagist. So that's fantastic. There are a couple of attempts going. I know Tony, the guy who runs he's kind of in charge of the starter kits at Laravel, has created a GitHub repo where he's keeping a list of community starter kits. We're working on creating a directory of community starter kits. It's just kind of hard to kind of curate. I know, because Tony represents Laravel, he wants to be a little bit careful about curating and making sure that anything he put in there is high quality. We kind of have the same issues. Like, to create any sort of a directory of starter kits, it's this is my endorsement that I think that these starter kits are a good starting point for your application. So I don't know what the end result will be, whether we'll end up publishing something or whether Laravel will put together an actual page of curated starter kits, or what the future holds there. But I think there's a lot of potential. The problem, of course, is it's kind of the Wild West, because you don't really, unless you really know what you're doing, it's hard to assess the quality of the starter kits. And there's also a lot of repetition. A lot of people are going to build basically the same starter kit, because we all want very similar things, but what I want might be just slightly different from what you want. But this is the limitation that we have because of the decision that Laravel made around how starter kits should be designed, that they should be just a full repo that has the entire app skeleton that you pull in. That's kind of where we are. But we may not always be there. I've had a couple of chats with Matt Stauffer at Titan, and he's working on a really exciting project called Mies. And what Mies aims to do is create a modular system where you can create pieces of starter kits and and put them in some sort of directory. I think they're looking at ways to create some sort of a SaaS where there would be a searchable directory. So if you want two-factor authentication for Vue.js using Inertia, that little piece of a starter kit will be there. And then if you want, you want a passkey authentication, if you want your theme to be this color scheme, or whatever sort of mix and match that you want in order to build your application, you'd be able to look for these little recipes. And it's a really cool, elegant solution that he came up with, where basically, if we look in the app directory here, in recipes, you just have these, there's this Laravel Breeze recipe, and this is where I think Matt did this one himself. He basically just created all the little components that make up Laravel Breeze and turned it into an invocable command. And where does he keep the actions? Oh yeah, here they are. Nope, that's not the one. He's moved some things around since I looked in here last. Steps, here we go. So what this system will basically do, and it's very much an alpha now, he's just kind of playing with it and trying to get it all working. But he's demoed it, and I really do feel like this is the future of starter kits, or something. Mies may not be the future of starter kits. I think it's a high quality thing. Matt has a great reputation. He's a great developer, really thinks through these things well. So I could see this getting a lot of traction when he's ready to release it. But I really think that the starter kit future looks like this. It's modular. It allows you to just kind of pick and choose the individual pieces you want to start your application however you want to start it. Has anybody here used a third-party starter kit, or I would assume everybody's played at least with the first-party ones. Does anybody use any third-party starter kits or built one? No? We don't do a lot of greenfield work here, do we? All right, maybe this isn't the right audience for starter kits. Yeah, I get excited about this stuff because we do all kinds of greenfield stuff. My partner and I will build applications just to build them. Just because we want to, here's a problem, we want to find a way to solve it. We may never make any money off of it, though we think we have a way to start making money off these things. But we just love solving problems. And so, I probably run Laravel new 30 times a year. And, the new starter kits have made that a little bit more fun. And I think that, Mies will make it a whole lot more fun. I was hoping that by the time I got up here, that this would be in a place where I would be able to just kind of pull it down and drag in my own steps and actually run it. But everybody's busy and it's only gone as far as it's gone. But I just wanted to put it on everybody's radar that I think that the Laravel solution was the right solution for Laravel as an organization, because they can only do what they can do. And being able to give everybody access to, what do they have, like 3 or 4 now, first-party starter kits, and I think that they were talking about maybe wanting to build that out to a dozen or something. That it probably makes sense for them to just take it that far. But I think that, as far as community projects go, Mies to me is the most exciting. The Mies README does mention, what is it down here? There's a Skeletor. Josh Manders came up with Skeletor, which is kind of trying to solve a similar problem. I think it goes beyond. I don't think Skeletor is necessarily designed for starter kits. It's kind of designed around just being able to automate some work on a Laravel application. This one uses, Skeletor uses Composer for a lot of things. Mies is just a single artisan command that then uses a lot of invocable classes. So each one of the steps, like if I want to install a two-factor authentication, there's an invocable class step that will copy over the files and maybe prompt you for any configuration that you might want, things like that. So that's the architecture that Matt chose. We do some similar stuff with some things that we're building. We rely heavily on Rector, and we have Rector do a lot of writing of code for us rather than us having to create stubs for every little thing. So just kind of a bunch of different approaches. all trying to solve the same problem. So yeah, I mean, that's really kind of what I came here to chat through. Unfortunately, it seems like none of you have a whole lot of feedback on this because you're not actually using these things, which is fine. I mean, it's not everybody. I think most Laravel developers aren't in a position where they do get to run Laravel new dozens of times a year, which is unfortunate because the framework is so dynamic and so fast moving and so exciting. The fact that I can always just like start a new project and take advantage of this new thing they released last week is really cool, and it makes what I do for a living a lot of fun. Except when I'm working on client work and then I do whatever they tell me to do. That's not quite as much fun. One other question, is anybody here going to Laravel Live UK this year? Nobody? It's just down the street. All right, this is the point.
You talked about those starter kits in the beginning and the issue of basically finding them and curating them. And in a different ecosystem, I've used the Kirby CMS in the past. Mm-hmm. That's a flat file-based CMS. And they've also have plugins, and they used something like composer tags or something like in the composer JSON structure of the package to identify, hey, this is a Kirby plugin. Mm-hmm. And that made it easier to find them. And I think through the packages API, you can search or filter by these values.
I can, but you'd have to, like the package authors would have to know to put those tags in.
Correct. So that will probably something like the Laravel team has to do in the future. Like Tony would have to say, hey, if you're a third-party starter kit, put in this tag and it will show up somewhere on a page. Mm-hmm. Well, but as you mentioned, there probably must be some manual review or like to maybe say, hey, this is a good
yeah, I don't know. So I talked to Matt at Titan about this because Titan ran or Matt ran. I don't know. I never know what to attribute to Matt or what to attribute to Titan. But I know that Matt was involved with a Nova plugin directory. And his take on it was, because they thought through that whole thing too, like how do we handle curation, how do we do quality control, because if we're putting our name on this thing, then obviously it's like some sort of an endorsement. And what they ended up doing was settling for just providing a user rating system and just encouraging if you download this and find it to be useful and you like it, come in and rate it 5 stars. If you download this and it breaks your computer and drunk text your ex-wife, then come in and give it 1 star. Which I think is probably it's a way to go. I don't know. I haven't fully thought through how comfortable I am with that idea. Again, if we were to, if I were to do something where it's completely unbranded, I don't put my company's name on it at all. It's just like it's just out there. Then maybe I could do that. But if I'm going to do something where like I have my company's name on it, or maybe throwing some advertising out there or something like that, then it feels a little different. So these are just some of the businessy things that I have to think through. Mm-hmm. And I'm honestly really hoping that somebody else solves the problem in a really good way so that I don't have to.
You don't have to solve all the problems for us.
No, I don't have to solve all the problems. But it is a problem that needs to be solved, because I think Mies will go a long way once you have that modular setup where you can just kind of pick and choose the pieces that you want. If that's widely adopted, and I hope that it is, whether it's through Mies or some other mechanism that's similar, then I think it becomes a little bit easier. But for right now, I mean, I can't tell you how many conversations I have where people are like, oh, I really want to build a Laravel app. It's not a starter kit that does blah. And it's just like some silly little thing. And I'm like, you know what? I'll bet you if you search, you get on Google, you probably would find somebody. But who knows if it's any good? And it might have this feature, but the other 10 things it has are all awful, or it's the wrong combination of things, or it does everything I want, but it's the wrong stack. Mm-hmm. I run into that all the time where it's like, oh yeah, this is really cool, but it's Vue and we want Livewire, or vice versa. And,
yeah, that would have been my second pointer question. For work, I recently had to look at Symfony, and they basically use recipes as well. Mm-hmm. for features, I think.
Yeah.
And it really reminded me of that, and I really like this approach because I often want to use a feature, but it's like bundled in this big thing, and
Yeah.
I'm one of those guys that still uses Laravel/UI in this application. It still works, and I really liked it. It was all published. So I'm really looking forward to this Mies
Yeah,
thing.
I think it'll be really cool. Yeah, and as far as like the stack question goes, when you were talking about the composer tags, I'm wondering if that would be the other thing that Tony should point people to is if you have if it's a Livewire thing, you should put Livewire as one of your tags, or if it's a view, whatever, put your stack in the tags.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe I will ping him or send him a message about this.
Yeah.
Any other question? If not, then big thanks to Ed for his talk.
Thank you for having me.